What if the same helicopter that came to rescue you, that was lifting your shattered body off the side of the mountain, was indeed the same helicopter that was lifting you into what would become your best self, the best version of you? Today is a total women's empowerment episode talking about rebuilding your life, taking the brokenness and creating something even better. If you, my friend, need a little inspiration, some motivation, some empowerment, well then, my friend, you are exactly where you're meant to be. I welcome you to episode 373. Hey, I'm your host, Kevin Lowe, and you are listening to Grit, Grace, and Inspiration. What's happening, and welcome back to another amazing episode here on Grit, Grace, and Inspiration. Today, I have the pleasure of being in the studio with none other than the amazing Wendy Feldman. Wendy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much. So super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, Wendy, I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to get to share your story. And I want to kick off our conversation today with a question of, we're going to obviously unpack all the different elements of your story, the stuff you've gone through. But given all that you've gone through in life, where you sit today, how would you describe the person you are today?
So we have an hour, when 20 minutes, what do we have, like 3 hours? Because I don't know. I don't know. Today I think I'm a very different human than I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And in the sense, I feel actually more, I'm 61 and I feel more myself, better in my own skin, just happier with who I am as a human, as a person, as a mom than I really have ever felt. And I actually look so forward to the future. And I know that could sound so, I don't want it to just sound like looking through rose-colored glasses, because clearly there's so much in the world going on. But I really feel like I got 40 years ahead of me, and I look at it with a very different lens than I have in my life before.
Yeah, I love that very much. Well, I guess my next question is something that I'm going to say is a chapter of your life, and that is cycling. How did you get started in cycling?
Oh, thanks for asking that question. That was a very huge, as you know, that was a really big part of my life. So I started cycling, in probably 2003. And it was, I always loved riding a bike. And so, but I got really into I always loved riding. When I was in college at UC Santa Barbara, everyone rode their bikes around. So you had this cruiser bike, your two-wheel with no gears or anything. And that's how you got around town. You just kind of went at night, middle of the night, whatever, you're riding your bike around. And that was the mode of transport. So I always loved it then. And kind of kept going. When I lived in the city, I would ride over the Golden Gate Bridge on my mountain bike and do some mountain biking. I just loved this sport. But it was really like in 2003 when I wanted to get into road cycling. Very different, right? You're on very lightweight bike with little tiny skinny little tires, and there's not much between the rubber of the tire and the road underneath you. It just became a passion of mine. And I started riding, and one of my really dear girlfriends that she used to race. And so she and I would ride together. And so one time we did a 100-mile ride, and, it was a coordinated ride. And I was still on my same mountain bike that was heavy. And she was on a racing bike, and, we did the whole ride. And I'll never forget, she said to me, "I am so afraid for you when you get a real road bike." She's like, "I can't believe you did this on this tank." It was the mountain bike I had since I was 20, so it was just like this jalopy. It was a jalopy. And I remember we ended up, you started at this high school where the race started, or the ride started. And Kevin, we got back to the high school, and I was so sick of that bike. I left it there. I said, "I'm done with this bike." I just left it. I thought, I don't care who takes it. It was like, someone can have it, because it had taken me through so many rides, and I'm like, that's what I'm getting. So that's when I bought my first road bike. And then I just had the bug. I had the bug, and it was challenging. It was freeing. It was fun. It was community. I met so many neat people. Sometimes you'd go out, you'd ride up beyond, on the road on your own. I'd go out for 3 or 4 hours during the day. Kids were at school, and I'd go out in the day and I'd ride, and I'd go out on my own a lot. Sometimes I'd ride with people, but you always meet someone on the road. You meet someone cycling on the back hills or back roads. And I live in a place where you could just, from my house, jump on and ride for 75 miles, just go. And beautiful territory. But you meet people, you just meet them, you sit and chit chat, you ride for a while together, they peel off, you peel off, and you continue riding, and sometimes you become friends and you ride again, or you don't, you say goodbye, you never see them again. It's just kind of a cool little world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess I can't help but hearing you just this idea of freedom in the cycling.
Freedom. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Amazing.
Total freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was freedom in a sense of, I think it also, connected me so much with nature. And because in nature and out in the universe, there is freedom. It's open territory, right? The sky is the limit. I mean, that's just a term used, but it's true. I mean, it's just vast. It's open. So you can get on the bike, the sky's the limit. You can go as fast as you want. You could go as slow as you want. You could ride with people. You could ride on your own. And when you're out there, you're literally right in touch with nature, because you're riding right alongside the terrain. You're riding right alongside the beauty of the plants and whatever it is, and the smells. And I just saw so many things that I might not ever even notice in a car, So it's just really cool. Very, very cool sport. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you ever get into racing, or always just more enjoyment?
Yeah, no, great question. No, I never got into racing. I rode with a lot of people that raced. And so I learned from them. And I would ride in big Peloton groups once a week. Usually I'd go on this, coordinated ride. It's like usually 30 or 40 people. And these people were great. They were really good cyclists. So it was challenging for me because, you're riding, your wheels are right on there, and so it was, I learned a lot on how to cycle. I learned how to be a very strong, good cyclist, how to climb and how to do all that. And, but yeah, no, it was purely enjoyment.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. Now, during this time of cycling, before we ever even get to your own incidents, did you ever witness any crashes of while you were out with others?
I really didn't. I mean, I'd see people, never anything bad. Let's put it this way. I mean, you might see people fall, but never anything tragic that would have ever made me go, oh gosh. I mean, I was fearless. And that's the crazy thing. There was a point where we would ride, we'd leave, a group of us would go, and we'd ride, like I said, 70, 80, sometimes 100 miles in a day. And we would ride through traffic. We'd ride along trucks. I mean, because you had to cut through certain towns, you had to cut through down, you're obviously you're going that far. You're clearly, I don't live in a rural area. So you are with cars, and you're at stop signs and your stoplights, and you got to keep up with traffic. And you kind of weave in between. I just was fearless. I don't know, it didn't faze me. I guess I felt so one with it. And so no, I did not, to answer your question on that. Didn't even witness my own first because I was unconscious. So didn't see that out. Yeah, I even missed that one. I even missed my own. Classic, classic me. Funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, would you mind talking through that? Because I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to be talking about today. You had 3 different kind of near-death experiences in the span of 8 years, correct?
2 was road cycling, 1 was not, but yes.
Okay. So talk to me about this first one.
So the first one was on May 21st, 2013. So, I know you've talked in a previous podcast about, traumatic anniversaries. And so I always know the dates of all of them. I will never forget the dates. So it was a Tuesday morning, and oddly enough, the night before, so I was going through a difficult time in my marriage, and we were married 20 years. And the night before, my ex-husband and I had, at the time we were married, we had broken up and separated, and we kind of had gotten back together. And the night before, the day I crashed, we had a pretty big disagreement, and we realized it's not going to work anymore. And so next morning I woke up, and I used to, never question getting on the bike. It was like, yeah, just get on the bike and go. And that morning I really questioned. I thought, I don't know if I should ride today. It's like I was really upset. I was really emotionally not in a good state. But I thought on the other side, I thought, well, maybe it'll clear your head. It's maybe a good for them. And I really grappled. I stood there in the garage next to my bike going, should I really ride today or should I just take a pass? And I opted to ride. And so I got up, I went up on the hills behind her. Live, I was riding up in the Berkeley Hills, right above the Berkeley campus. It's gorgeous up there, beautiful. And I'm riding along and I actually passed a couple riders I knew, kind of waved to them. And shortly after I saw them, I went down this hill that I'd never gone down. It was very, very steep descent. I had climbed up it, so I knew how hard it was, but had never gone down it. And I turned to go down it. And again, at the top, I was kind of thinking, should I go that way or should I take the longer way home? And I thought, no, I kind of want to get home. I'll just take this shortcut. And I went down this road. And as I was going down the road, I started to pick up speed. And this cyclist came up behind me. And, when you're cycling, someone will let you know they're coming up and they kind of yell out on your left, right, to let you know there's someone coming up. And he must have said it twice because I didn't hear it the first time. And so I must have been really kind of in my own world. And he screamed it and it kind of jostled me. And I thought, oh gosh. And he went by very fast. And so I kept riding. And I realized at that point that I was just kind of in my own world. I wasn't really focused on the road. So as I kept going down the descent, I started picking up a lot of speed and had a Garmin. You had this little monitor on my bike. And I remember it saying about 40 miles per hour. And that was about the last time I remember much because all of a sudden I looked up and I went down there was a very steep part of the hill that I didn't even know was there. I took a deep drop and he had stopped, this other cyclist had stopped at the bottom of that little hill where there was a stop sign. I had no idea there was a stop sign there. Then there was a bunch of pine needles and which you're not supposed to do. I slammed on the brakes, but it was such instinct, jammed on the brakes. Bike went, in my head, the bike fishtailed because it started to swerve on the pine needles. And all I remember is literally it was everything went into this very, very odd, like a slow motion in a movie. And I literally screamed out, I'm going to die. This is it. And I swore and I said, this is it, I'm dying. And that was the last thing I remember. And thank goodness he was there because he heard me fall. I just went flat over. I didn't fall off the bike. Because I had stopped, I don't know about the slow motion. That must have been, maybe that was my brain. I have no idea. But I just went flat over to my left and slid on the road. And he, fortunately for him, he stopped. He looked back and he was like, oh my God. So he screamed. He didn't even have a cell phone at the time. So he yelled, call 911. We were up in the hills and there's botanical gardens up there. And he heard the landscapers because he heard the blower, so he knew there were people there. So he started screaming, call 911. I was unconscious and he took his bike and he literally threw his bike about 15 feet behind me because cars come down the road. So where I was lying in the middle of the road was around a corner. So if a car was coming down, they wouldn't even have time to stop. So he put his bike back there. It was kind of like a flare to say, stop, Then he was able to call, they were called for help. And it turned out they put me in an ambulance because we were in kind of a very tree covered area and the helicopter could not land there. So they had to put me in an ambulance to take me around the bend where there was more of an open clearing where the helicopter could land. And that, I don't even remember any of that. I had no recollection of the ambulance. And then when I did wake up though, the first sound I heard was the blades of the helicopter, going around. And I couldn't open my eyes. They were stuck shut. And I was in pain. I was cold. Found out I was cold because they had to literally cut all my clothes off of me because my eyes were puffing up so black and blue and my ears, I was bleeding out of my ear and down my neck. They thought that I was totally hemorrhaging out of my brain. So that's why they were rushed me to the hospital. Right. So that's when I woke up and I remember waking up and hearing these sounds and hearing people talking and saying, get this, do this, do this. And the first words out of my mouth were, I said, I need to go. I need to pick up my kids at school. Someone's going to get my kids. It was the first thought in my head was, who's going to get my kids to school? And then the next thing I knew, I was being strapped onto a plank. So we're putting you onto a plank. We're going to load you into a helicopter. You're on your way to the nearest trauma center. And then, from there, I was in and out of consciousness. It was, so that was the first one. That was the first one. It was rough.
Wow. That is really traumatic. Did you ever get in contact with that cyclist who had been there that day?
Yes, I did. I did. That's such a good question. I did, because I wanted to know what happened. And I'm trying to think, I think because I had no idea what happened, right? Imagine I get to the hospital, I'm there for 7 days, no idea what had happened. And nobody did, And so I was like basically a Jane Doe when I got to the hospital, because what happened is, when you're cycling, you have a jersey, and your cycling jersey has little pockets in the back. And that's where you put kind of your stuff. You don't have anything else on your bike. You don't have a back. You don't have anything with you. And they had cut my clothes off. And so the police that show up to the scene, they take all your belongings with you. So they had taken all that with me. So when they put me in the hospital, into the helicopter, it was like literally the blanket over me, the sports bra that they left on, and me. That's it. There was nothing. So they didn't know who I was. So they literally had no clue I was coming in as a Jane Doe. And because I always rode with my license and everything, but that was now at the police station. So I was able to then, through the police report and, contact the police, find out who was the person that gave the report. From there, I was able to reach him. And then I also did reach out to the first responders. And of course, I ended up bringing them, a big thing of brownies and cookies and everything, because they saved my life, later when I could move. But when I did call the first responders, like 3 weeks later, and when I got the name of the guy, and I got his name through a cyclist, because he actually, one of my friends is a cyclist. He was a first responder, not on site, but he works at that same station. He heard all about it. That's actually, they found out who I was, because he had said, and that guy recognized, said, "Oh, that's Wendy Feldman," and that's how they were to realize who I was. So, but when I called and I told that first responder, when he heard my voice, he said, "Wait, who is this?" And I told him, I said, "I was the one up on by the botanical gardens." And he was like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "Oh my God." He goes, I can't wait to tell the guys about this." He said, he said, "I have to tell you." He said, "We put you in that helicopter." And he said, "We all looked at each other, said, she's not making it to the hospital. So she's not making it." And he was and I said, "Really?" He's like, "Oh God, you were in." And he said, "Do you want to know?" And I said, "I do." And he told me the details, and it was like, whoa. But, so when I reached out to the guy, poor guy, he said he couldn't even get on his bike for weeks. He said he had to call a friend to come pick him up. He said he was so traumatized that he said he sat there. He thought it was his fault. He said it was my fault, his fault, because he stopped at that stop sign and he didn't need to, he had this whole thing. And I said, no. And he's like, "No, it's my fault." And I said, "Look, if you weren't there, I wouldn't have been dead." So we actually kept into contact for a while. He was a good guy, he came out, and I just wanted to assure him, he saved my life. He saved my life.
Yeah. Wow. Now, what kind of injuries did you end up sustaining from that accident?
So it broke my skull in 3 places on the left temporal lobe.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I suffered very severe traumatic brain injuries. Really, really horrific. So that was tough to come back from. That was tough to recover from. Really bad headaches for a very long time. I tore a hole in my left eardrum, so I couldn't hear out of that ear for a while. I fractured the bones around my eye. I fractured my jaw. I broke my collarbone. The only bone I broke was my collarbone. So I do have a plate and screws in that now, permanent. Fractured ribs, fractured my pelvis in 5 spots. So yeah, it was a lot of fractures. But I was very fortunate that I only broke the collarbone. So that was very, very lucky. But rehab was tough. It was a lot of learning to walk again. And my eyes were swollen shut for days. They were so swollen, Kevin. Not a scratch on my face. Thank God for the helmet, Thank God for the helmet.
Wow. How long would it take you, Wendy, to really recover from that? I mean, to the point of getting back to, quote unquote, like normal life.
Yeah. It took a good, 8 to 10 months. I'm really feeling where I didn't have the headaches and I didn't get dizzy and I didn't get nauseous. I had nausea for a lot of time, just really severe, just waking up because head trauma. So it's just dizzy. And the first week I was home, we had to close off any light in the bedroom. So And we had to have the dog stay next door because I couldn't have any sound, because any type of sound was so hard for the brain. So even in the hospital, the first week, they put me in like literally a soundproof, double doored, dark room because sound, light, anything was too much for me. It was brutal to see anything or hear anything. So it took a while. So I couldn't hear music. I mean, I remember my son was so sweet when I was able to. I walked with a little walker and I was able to go outside one day. He said, "Come on, Mom, let's go in the backyard." And was able to get outside. And he had his music with him and he put on a James Taylor song and he played it really quiet, real, like so quiet. And I remember how, over time we'd sit outside, he'd walk with me and we'd sit outside and he was able to turn the music up, he's able to turn the music up. He's like, "Getting better, Mom, you can listen a little louder now." It's like I had to protect my eardrum and everything. So it took time, but I got here and that, it takes time, but the body is an amazing thing. Body is amazing. And the power of your mind too, the power of your brain. Just tell yourself, when Kevin, when being strong is the only choice you have, you get through stuff.
Yeah. I love that so much. When being strong.
You know that.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
When being strong is the only choice you have, and then that. You've been in hospital beds, that.
Yep.
When you're lying there and you don't have another choice but strength. And man, did that make me strong. I mean, and has it kept me to just go back to that? And yeah, I know you get that. I know you understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, at this point, where were you at in your personal life with your marriage? Were you separated at this point?
Well, yeah, that was a great question. It was tough, and now I look back and I go, gosh, I mean, if I were in my ex-husband's shoes, and it was literally, I mean, clearly the morning that I crashed we were both probably figuring, let's find our attorneys and let's get this going. So then he finds out that I crash and, I was like, and, so I was at home. No, we were still living in our same home. And, he took care of me and we had, thank goodness, I had a community of people I didn't even know. I mean, that's the crazy thing. And I think you probably can relate. People you don't even know. Or like distant, like parents of my kids' friends that maybe had only met once or twice. Oh my God, do they come out and help, like support and do meals and are there? And I had to have full-time people watch. My husband would go to work in the day and the kids were at school, but I needed to have someone with me all the time. I couldn't be left alone because of the head trauma. And so I always had, I'd be sleeping a lot, but there'd be people in the other room just wait, speak nearby if I needed them. So that was for a couple of weeks I had that. So, but once I pretty much healed, I did move out. We separated and it was rough and it was tough, but yeah. So that was kind of going on through all that. So it was not easy. There were a lot of different factors going on in that recovery.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the mental game, the mindset here in terms of, here you are, you're a mother, you have children, you're cycling, you're doing this thing you love, and yet while doing that thing you love, you literally almost die. What does that do for you and your maybe just perspective on life? I assume it had to have some type of impact.
Absolutely. Huge. And I look back now and there's times, I mean, a lot. And I really say, and thank you for asking that question, because that I think hopefully many of your listeners can understand or relate to. I'm sure many can relate to, because people have traumas in all different fashions. They come in all different shapes and sizes, colors, and whatever. And it put so much in perspective. It made me, number one, it made me realize that yes, what I'm doing, unfortunately having to break up our family, that was the healthiest thing to do for my children and for myself. And I think ultimately for my husband as well. It was not a healthy relationship. And so we weren't doing any good to show the kids what an unhealthy relationship is like. That's not going to do any good in a toxic household, And so it definitely solidified that. It also put in perspective what I learned about people, and I learned about, who you count on and what's important, like what really matters. Like the stuff, I didn't care about the stuff anymore. I mean, stuff that I thought was important. Oh my gosh, it is not important. I was like, no, because I realized how your health and the ability to be able to just move your body and breathe. I mean, it changes your perspective. And so that day, literally, May 21st, 2013 has really marked a day in my life that only it was one of the greater gifts in my life. The three greatest gifts in my life was my three children. But one of the greatest gifts to me as a human of growth was on May 21st, 2013. And it was funny. I was running at a very fast pace. I was going, always busy, and always on the bike. And I'll never forget at the time when my husband at the time said to me, you were going so fast. You're moving at such a fast pace that you keep up at this pace, you're going to crash and burn. And I'll never forget that. And he was right, because I did crash. And I didn't burn, but I crashed. And that is the universe's way, has a very interesting way of sometimes saying, stop you in your tracks. You're not ready to die. I'm not going to let you die because there's a reason that you're here, meant to be here, Wendy. But it stopped me in my tracks to say, look at what's going on here.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are you doing? And that did it. That did it.
Yeah.
And I needed that. And man, did I slow down? And did I start new things and learn new things and start to do things I wouldn't have taken the time to do before? And it was really healthy for me. It's really good. It was really good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how sometimes it takes something to happen to give us that kind of needed perspective change, to get to see life differently. And that's
100%.
powerful.
Yeah. And, yeah, no. We don't wish that. We don't want people to go through that. We don't want people to have to go through that, right? But if that happens to you, if for whatever reason, you gotta remember that, look at it for what it is, take it for what it is, get through it, be strong, get through the pain of it, heal, and move on. And then learn what came out of that. What can we take out of the negatives in life? Because there's going to be a lot of them. What can we take from that? And how can we turn that? It's the adage, turn lemons into lemonade. But it's true. How can we take things that are negative? Because you're going to get faced with them every day, all the time. And how do you flip it? It's like you sit all the time, flip the script, and it's flipping the narrative. Change up your change talk, get your change talk up. How are you talking? How are you seeing things? How are you saying things? How are you listening? How are you perceiving it? That's what is going to make the difference in this world, is better understanding, being a little more patient with people, not passing judgment, all those things. That is how we learn to grow. And that's how we become a healthier, happier, more well planet as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 110%. So, Wendy, here's the thing. Everybody so far, they're like, oh my gosh, I love Wendy. Oh, I feel so bad for her. But then I'm going to ask the next question. And I think they're going to be like, this woman is crazy. She's stupid. What is she thinking? Because you took the age-old thing of, if you fall off the horse, you got to get back on it. So you did the same with the bicycle.
I did.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. And I kind of did it secretly too. It was kind of like, oh my God, I have to do this and not let any of my family know I'm doing this. Because they're all like, you are flipping nuts.
Yeah.
You're flipping nuts. And maybe it was, but you're right. You're right. It was kind of the get back up and do it to get off that fear. And I kind of, as a matter of fact, I did kind of start it just for that. Just be like, okay, I'm going to get on. And we rode like a mile from my house, like, just up to the school, nearby school, and then back home, and really careful. And someone went with me, and they're like, okay, you can do it, And then it was like, I can do this. And then I would do it every day. And I was like, oh God, now I'm going to do 2 miles. And now I'm going to go do this, And then I was like, yeah, I'm back, and then I actually I did it on a Mother's Day. I did this really cool ride with this beautiful mountain, Mount Diablo, which is one of the taller peaks in the state of California. And I used to ride it, a couple times a week. I would love it. It's about 4,000 foot climb. It's one of my favorite mountains. And they have this on Mother's Day, they have this challenge. It's called the Diablo Challenge, where everyone starts, it's a race start, everyone starts at the bottom and you get to the top as fast as you can. And I did it. And I ended up placing third in my age group. So I was in my early 50s. So I ended up placing third in my age group, which was awesome. I was like really excited. Made a pretty good time, not as good as I wanted, but I made it for the fact I did it, So I did get back on. And then I started riding kind of like, with my group again. And one day I did a group ride, that planned group ride I told you about, with a lot of very strong racers. Silly little dumb crash, actually. I mean, we were all going slow. We were just starting out. It was the beginning of a 75-mile ride. We're probably 5 miles into the ride. Somehow my front wheel, just there by a hair, caught a back wheel of a rider in front of me. And that takes you down. And then like 5 people fell on me from behind me. And I fell flat on my chin. And I think I must have blacked out for a very short second. But unfortunately, and I got up. And everyone stopped and they're like, okay, Wendy, we gotta get to a hospital. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, no, my chin was bleeding and my hand was bleeding. I'm like, no, you guys go. It's a beautiful day. You guys ride. I'm going to ride home. And they're like, I don't think you should ride home. My hand was starting to swell up. And they're like, I think you should get to a hospital. And I really said, you know what? No, really, I'm really good. I'm all good. I'm fine. I'm scraped up, but I'm going to ride home and, be good. And one woman said, no, I'm going to take you to the hospital. So she put me in her car and we went to the hospital. And I get to the hospital and the doctor said, weren't you here just like a year and a half ago with another? Didn't we see you recently? And I said, yes. And he said, well, we're going to scan your brain since you had a traumatic brain injury. We're going to scan it. Looks like you hit your head again. And I said, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm fine. Like, please let me go home. The scan comes back and he comes in and he looks at me and he says, well, I have to tell you, you're not so fine. He said, you actually cracked your skull in the same place you cracked it the first time. And he said, this crack is actually a little bit worse. He said, whereas on the first time there was no blood on your brain. He said, this time you have to actually have a little fracture on a part of the skull that is very close to nicking one of the largest arteries that goes up into your brain. And I'm not saying this correctly because I don't really remember. I think I tuned out everything he was saying at this point. But all I knew is he said, if that little nick, that little sharp point of the bone were to rupture that, he said, you're gone. So he said, we're basically going to put you in ICU. You're going to be completely still for 24 hours. And we're going to see, because there is bleeding on your brain now. He said, there's bleeding in there. And he said, we need to make sure that little piece, that little shard, that little piece of bone can smooth out and not get close to that vein. And we also want to make sure that the bleeding stops. And he said, you have 24 hours. If in 24 hours the bleeding stops, then, I think you're going to be fine. If it does not stop in 24 hours, you're going in tomorrow morning for brain surgery. And I looked at him and I said, you've got to be kidding me. And he said, you're done with cycling. He said, third time's the charm. You are done. And I just remember going, yeah. And my kids and everyone's, and that was it. That was the end of my cycling days, for sure. Except for, being on a Peloton, a stationary bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, the road is done. Road is done.
Wow.
So for your listeners, yes, the crazy lady who did get on is now no longer on a road bike. Yeah, they're going to say that crazy word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did it end up going? Did we have good news and the bleeding
No, I did not need the brain surgery.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. The next morning they said, good for you. The bleeding has stopped. You will be here for another 4 days. We're keeping you for observation. And my chin was a mess. My chin was horrible. I had this big, like, round chin it had been like raspberry, when you scrape, when you're a kid, you scrape something and it's like, it's not, but it was bleeding, but not like deep, but it swelled and it was huge. And I don't want to jump ahead in the podcast, but, I found out years later, because I kind of had this little pointy chin. I kind of found out years later what was wrong with it. And it turned out that day I crashed, that there's a muscle called the mentalis muscle. And the mentalis muscle is, if you touch your chin right now, you kind of feel that little bit down there, kind of like the bottom of your chin. It's kind of squishy.
Uh-huh.
That's a muscle right there.
Huh.
And that muscle pulled away from the bone. So if you pull yours, you can pull it down. My muscle permanently pulled away from the bone. Never knew that happened in that crash, but it permanently pulled away. So I didn't like it. So, 3 years ago, I had gone into a plastic surgeon to see if they could do anything about that. And that's when he told me about it. He's like, yeah, you've pulled your muscle away from the bone. But he said, we can, kind of reattach it, kind of push it back up a little bit. And I was like, great, let's do that. So on April 15th of 2021, so yes, remember that date.
Yes.
I went in for that surgery to have that done. And when they were prepping me for that surgery, I just wanted to have that little thing repaired. That's all I wanted. Just put it back up there where it belongs. And I'm supposed to be kind of relatively, an outpatient surgery. My ex-husband was there. He actually took me to the surgery, and my daughter was going to pick me up. The anesthesiologist put the IV in my hand, and he said, we're just going to sedate you a little bit, get you a little calm before the procedure. And I said, okay. And that's the last thing I heard or knew until I woke up 36 hours later, intubated, so on a ventilator with a tube down my throat and my hand strapped to a table or to my bed, to my hospital bed. And I woke up and my ex-husband was right there by my side. And the first thing I heard him say into my ear was, you really do have 9 lives. When he said, you really do have 9 lives. I remember thinking, what is he talking about? And I couldn't talk, but it's like, poor guy's going to go 3 of these with me. But I got to tell you, that was scary. So I never had the surgery. Bottom line is I never had this. I still have the muscle that's hanging off of my chin. But yeah. So they oversedated me and my lungs collapsed basically and almost died again. And I'm incredibly lucky to be alive from. So they rushed me back to the trauma center, which is the same hospital that I've been in. They saved my life. I had to have 2 lung surgeries as a result of all of that. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Now, how long after the second crash on the bike was this surgery?
That was about 7 years, I guess, 7 years.
Okay.
So it was all within about a 10-year span. I'm thinking, I always think it's 8 years. I think it's always about, it was 2013 to 2021. So I guess that's 9 years, so 9-year span. So the second crash was 2015, and then this was 2021. So you're talking 7 years, yeah, 7 years, roughly 7 years after.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So the time in between when you basically were told no more cycling, but you found a way to keep cycling, but without the fear of crashing on a stationary bike. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, that's where the magic, that's where you turn that lemon into lemonade. So I loved this road. It was actually really hard to give that up because it wasn't just the bike. It was the community I'd met, the people I'd met, the people. It's like you speak the similar language. It's like it's your tribe, it's your people, and so I miss that. I really miss that camaraderie. That was hard. That was very challenging. I needed to find something new, that is going to give me that. So one of my kids said, why don't you ride a stationary bike? And that's when I thought, what? And I was a teacher. I was a bar instructor. There's like a Pilates yoga kind of instructor. And I thought, why don't I look into becoming a spin instructor? So I got spin certified. And then there was a studio that opened right around the corner of my house. And someone told me, hey, they're looking for spin instructors. So I reached out to her and I taught there for 6 years until COVID. And then our studio unfortunately had to close. But yeah, I became a spin instructor and loved it. It was great because what I did in my rides is I would do the rides like I was taking people out on the road. So, and I still have people I'll run into them. They're like, I used to love that ride when you take us on the back hill and you would take, and they still remember that. I would kind of say, okay, well, we're going to ride because I did so many cool rides around the area that I would say, well, now we're on this particular ride. And I'd kind of mock them through it. So it's like when we had to do a climb, we climbed and we'd sprint and they were tough and they were fun. And we just, the room was a sweat fest and it was great music and fun. And I got such enjoyment out of that because I could really keep that, still bring that love of cycling and, keep those memories of my rides and bring the little fun anecdotes into it when I was riding. And it made it fun for them. It made an hour go by so quick and they loved it and they got a great workout and I pushed them and they pushed themselves. And so that was actually really great. So I taught, spin a few days a week. So that was really great. And then after the studio closed and then COVID hit, COVID, I ended up getting a Peloton bike and that's become my I love that. So that's why I'm with the cycling. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. So now you're one of those Peloton people. I hear about you people. Come
on, join us. You hear about it's true. We're this weird, funky group of people, but it's true. And then you know what? But it's a brilliant model because you have the same tribe because when you get on the bike, it's so different. It's not like just riding a regular station. I couldn't just get on a bike and ride on my own. I wouldn't do it. But you've got the minute you get on, their instructors are inspiring. They're fun. The music's awesome. And you have this little leaderboard, where people that are riding with you, you have your own little special name. And mine is Ladybug on Wheels. And you have everyone's little leaderboard's name up there. So you're riding alongside with them. So there's people in there riding at the same time you are. And whether it's a live ride or virtual. And so you always feel like you're with people. You're not pushing against them, but you're riding with them. And so it feels really good. And it's really become that, where I have it, the bike is in my bedroom and I've got a really big window next to it. And I look out all into trees in my backyard. And because I back up to wild open space, it's honestly, I leave the window open and I just feel, honestly, it's my own little way of, I feel like, I kind of feel like I'm back on the road and I ride for a long time and short, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's I get that same, I get a very similar feel. It's really neat, Kevin. I have to say I found this and I am grateful. I'm grateful to Peloton for this because it's given me that for sure. And I know it's given a lot of people that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really powerful. And what I think is really amazing is I can't help but be so grateful that you were able to find that because I know for myself, when I went blind, I grew up on the back of a dirt bike and I rode dirt bikes my entire childhood. And I mean, every day from I'd get home from school, immediately I'd jump on my dirt bike or four-wheeler. And and it was hard to lose that.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. And so to hear that you were able to find a way to come up with something new. Obviously, it's not the same, but you found something new. You found the tribe. I just think that's really amazing. And I think it speaks a lot about just you as a person, of your ability and willingness to adapt to new situations and to, make the most out of it.
Yeah. You just said the word you said is adapt. And that, that word, because that's exactly right. As you look, I admire you. And for anyone who knows you, is listening to you and listens to you, you're a hero in my eyes. What you have gone through in your life and what you have done and what you've created, this little empire you've created, you're really an amazing, you are true grit. You are so inspirational. And I find you to be fascinating, but it's true because in life, it's about adapting. And that is how I work with my clients. It's things are going to happen, but it's you adapt, and we can all adapt to change. And it's how we look at it because things are going to happen. And initially it might seem scary. It might seem like, how am I going to deal with this? It certainly was when I realized that my marriage wasn't going to work. I didn't think I'd be here at 61, that I'd be single, having to recreate my life and start over. And I'm sure you didn't think, when you were 15, you didn't think you'd be where you are today, but look what you've created.
Yeah.
Look at the gift and look at the gifts you've brought to so many people. And so you've adapted. And I think that if as humans, just as animals do out in the wilderness, you adapt, you camouflage, you adapt yourself and to your surroundings. And and you find the positive in it, because there is a positive in it. All you have to do is go outside and breathe the fresh air and look up at the sky. Nature has a very incredible way of bringing some power to your mind and your body. And it's free. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. Go outside, go for a walk, get out in nature, go by yourself, listen to it. Hear, what are you listening to? What do you hear? Smell. Like, what do you smell? What is going on? The sight, the sound and the smell and the feel of it is enough.
Yeah.
And it's so empowering and it's so healing for our bodies, so healing for our mind. And I cannot express enough how important it is to really let yourself be outside and, and take, nature's there to give. Mother Nature, she's an amazing, amazing thing. Like, it's there for us. It's right there for us. And it's one thing that I think, I would love more people to take advantage of Mother Nature, take advantage of our earth. It's a beautiful place, and honor it and take care of it the way we want to honor and take care of our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes me think that you need to get onto Peloton, and they need to do one of those crazy like 4D experiences where it starts like spraying water at your face or shooting wind at you, making you feel,
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, I love it. Yes, because I used to ride in the rain too. I mean,
Yeah.
craziness. I didn't want to, but sometimes I wouldn't get home in time, and then the rain would come in. It was like, oh God. And I get, but I had a couple of days where that was like, that I didn't like, because I do not like riding with the grounding weather. Yes, you're right. We could totally have the wind, the rain. You can have truck sounds and everything coming at you. Horns honking, all the horns. Oh my gosh. Yes, you can really make it really, really virtual.
Yeah.
People like, ah,
Yeah. Well,
um,
you just let me know, Wendy. I'll come over. I'll set up a box fan in front of you. That'll be the win. I'll have a little horn behind you.
please. Would you,
We'll start
would you
honking.
please? I know. I wish you did. Totally. You can be my little wingman. You can
Exactly.
be back there doing all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to get one. I'm going to get another one. Have you come over? I'm going to have you ride one.
Exactly. That would be,
Because
yeah.
wouldn't it be so fun? The fact that you were a dirt biker, so you get it. You get
Yes.
that freedom of being outside. You love that, right? And you get
Yes.
that, that kind of, I don't want to use the word that rush, but it's the feeling of openness, and I get it now. Like, I hike. So now hiking's become a big part of my life, long walks, or just hiking and just being, again, where it's challenging. I challenge myself. It's not easy. It's hard to do some of these things, I can't go as far. I can't go 70 miles, but, I can at least get a good chunk in.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the theme that we've spoken about of freedom,
Freedom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, talk to
Yeah.
me, Wendy, about what you do today with your career as I think you do like fitness and wholeness instructor. Talk to me a little bit more
Yes.
about that.
Yes. So I have been a fitness instructor for 15 years. So I still teach, and I love that. And it gives me I love educating. I love teaching. I love supporting people. I love helping people find their true inner self, their best self, and to feel their best self. And I love to inspire, just like you do. And so I became a health and wellness coach because I really felt that kind of brought all my things together. And that's what I do now. So, building that business of health and wellness coaching, and it's holistic, right? So it's not just about physical nutrition. What are you putting in your mouth, or how much what kind of movement are you getting in your day? It's so much more. It's about spiritual nutrition. It's about intellectual nutrition. What are you feeding your brain? What are you feeding your soul? What are you spiritual? How are you spiritually? And that could be nature, could be it. It is for me. But all these different. How are you in your career, in your occupational world? How are you feeding yourself? Where do you rank them on a scale of 1 to 10? Where are you? And so that's how I work with people, to really kind of find that balance, because it's when we find that balance, that's when we're really whole. That's when we're well, because, you will learn, you can read and hear wellness experts will say, wellness is not the absence of disease. Just because we're not sick, just because we don't have diabetes or we don't have heart issues or cancer, does not mean we're well. Yes, we may be, quote, we're free of it. Yes, we're free of disease. But how do you just really just get on that continuum, that wellness continuum, to say what makes you really well and healthy? And that's my quest. And that's how I feel That's where I'm going. That's what I'm always going to be working toward. And I feel better and better now than I've ever felt. I really feel like but I'm not there yet. I still feel like I've got ways to, room to grow. And I want to keep educating myself, and I want to keep learning, and I want to keep educating my brain, and I want to keep that going. I want to keep my intellectual health going. So that's how I work with my clients, and I work with people. I've been doing podcasts more, which I really love this. I am going to be doing some motivational speaking next week at a conference on the East Coast. So we're doing it virtually, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, that's kind of and I'm a mom. I'm a mom. That's my first and foremost love, is being a mom. And yeah, that's what I'm doing in my world, Kevin. That's what I'm doing in my world.
Well, I love that. Now, do you work with people virtually, like from anywhere, or is it just people local?
Yes, 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 yes. No, virtually. As a matter of fact, even I do have local clients, but it's all virtual. We do everything via Zoom, which thank goodness for Zoom. We love that, which is nice because the sessions are 30 minutes. And it's kind of a nice, although, I do have to say, like, one client will do she does live nearby. And so we'll do a 30-minute walk, because one of her things is she wants to get more movement. So instead of us doing a 30-minute sit down call, I'm like, what, let's go on a walk. So we walk for a 30-minute session, and it's been great. It's really nice. We really, really enjoy that. She really enjoys it. And sometimes we'll go for about 45 minutes, but it's great because it kind of kills two birds with one stone. It takes it takes our time together, and it gets her outside as well. So that's been really, really good.
Yeah.
But majority is virtual. So yes, I can work with people anywhere across the globe.
Well, that's amazing. Well, for somebody who might be interested, where's the best place for us to send them to learn more?
They can go to my web. Yeah, please. My website, which is wendyfeldmanwellness.com. Just wendyfeldmanwellness.com. Or social media is Wendy Feldman with an underscore and then wellness.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I will be sure that is in the show notes along with everything else on the website, all the places. But Wendy, I have one last question is, with all that you've gone through, these near-death experiences, the personal struggles of just life, of marriage, of divorce, of being a parent, all the stuff. If you could talk to yourself before all of this happened, what would you have loved that you could have told her, knowing what you know now?
There's a lot. And that is such a powerful, such a great question. I think I would say, Wendy, don't try to be perfect. Don't try to be someone you're not. Resist the temptation to say yes to others when it means saying no to yourself, and resist that temptation to say no to others for fear of disappointing them. Watch the people pleasing aspect.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, just really watch out for that. I think all those things I learned in the last 10 years, and especially in the last, 10 years, I learned all about all those things. That if I had told myself that the younger Wendy,
yeah,
I wouldn't change my life, Kevin. That's the thing. See, we evolve, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it because I love what I have right now.
Yes.
And I've got the three most amazing children. So I know I would not change it. Though it might have changed it, put things in different perspective.
Yes.
It might have altered different things. So I think those things.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would tell her.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you know what? It goes back to the conversation that me and you had before we ever started recording today, is that we can't control what happens in this life, but we can control how we react to it. And you, Mrs. Wendy, have reacted in the most amazing of ways of adapting. We talked about the importance of that, of evolving and continuing to evolve into the person that you've become and the person that you will be. And I think it's a pretty darn beautiful journey that you've been on.
And I am honestly, I wish I could talk to you forever. It's like, I feel I have chills. The world is blessed to have Kevin Lowe in their presence. And I hope that more and more people, certainly I am all cheerleader, go Kevin, because you're a true inspiration to me. And today has just solidified all of that. And I will do whatever I can to help you in your life and build your own career in your business, because I think what you have gone through and how you have flipped your narrative and how you have flipped your script is so many people can learn from that. And if we could all be as strong as the Kevin Lowe, I think this world would be in a really great place.
Wendy, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
No, you're amazing. Thank you.
Yes. Well, for you listening today, I guess at this point I ask you, what did you take away? Did you come away inspired? Were you left empowered? Or maybe were you just left to look at your own life from a different view? Starting to view the challenges you go through is not bad things. No, they're just things. And it all depends on how we react to it, how you react to it. I hope today that it left you thinking about you and your life, because that's what this is all about. My friend, I'm Kevin Lowe, and this is another amazing interview here on Grit, Grace, and Inspiration. You get out there and enjoy the day. Stay awesome and live inspired.